Yes, that speech is very significant. It still continues. There are no doubt more highlights to come. We'll turn them around and make sure that you see them. Otherwise, you can watch it all live right now over on Sky News Extra. That's the box, and you can go finding him on the app or on the Foxtel platform. All right, lots to get to tonight, including yet another opinion poll tells us what we already know. Australians have had enough when it comes to huge amounts of migration. It's not about culture. It's about the number of people that are here and the problems that that causes. We'll discuss that. Can you believe it? There are local councils that are now telling people about how many pets they can have at home. Now, I get it. None of us are huge fans of the crazy cat lady or the crazy cat fella. But literally telling you how many pets you can have? Okay. And the great Nigel Farage, the only place you'll see him on Australian TV, is here. He's got lots to say, including some big plans when it comes to the United Kingdom's economy. All of that matters. Why? Because all the polls say he could be their next Prime Minister. But first, something you have not heard thus far, and yes, we'll talk about everything from net zero to the Reserve Bank tonight, but I want to talk about how those in power at the federal, state and local level spend your money, otherwise known as other people's money, freely available to them, of which they piddle up against the wall, occasionally so hard they could move a brick, dare I say. Now, let's be honest, all of us are actually okay with the concept that Australia is a country where, yes, we pay our taxes and we expect in return for that that we can have access to incredible services, but more importantly, that people who are less fortunate than us have the opportunity to get those services, right? Of course, the tax office does this oh so regularly, every fortnight, every month, however you do, and if you can scrape a little bit back when it comes to a tax return, good luck to you. All of that is, of course, so we can have working hospitals, we can have plentiful schools, we can have quality roads. On all three of those, of course, we know that our country is failing. But there is one area of government spending that I thought you should know about, and this is the federal level. Before I show you, how much money do you think that the federal government spends, i.e. you and me, but the federal government, this federal government spends on public servants? Couple of $1 billion? No. This many $1 billion. Have a look. The total cost now of the Australian Public Service is very close to $30 billion. $30 billion. That number, by the way, has blown out in the past 12 months. Why? Because the Labor Party wants to increase, what do we like to say, the triangle of dependence. This does not surprise me, it does not surprise you, but have a look at some of these numbers. $841 million was overspent on public sector wages for 14 departments in the financial year 24-25. It could contribute to higher government spending already forecast to hit 27% of gross domestic product if Labor increases departmental spending allowances to ease pressure to cut costs. Now, Australia is at a fork in a road. And I know that we've had an election where to even have a discussion about a reduction in the number of public servants resulted in hair being set on fire and cuts. And as soon as that word is used, then the Labor Party's off to the races. $30 billion. Can we go back to the original graph? Again, this is put together by the Parliamentary Budget Office and a reporter for the Financial Review. But let's have a look at the cost of the Australian Public Service in 2020 was a third less at $20 billion. The cost of the public service has gone from 2010, when it was, $15 billion, to now $30 billion. The Australian population has not effectively doubled since 2010. But the overall cost of public servants, and yes, included in this are members of the military, I understand that, but still, the total amount of public servant wages is now $30 billion. Now, this country, this year, will go into $1 trillion debt. Our budgets are in deficit for the next 40 years, and this bill only goes up. Our capacity to pay that bill only goes down. But because the triangle of dependence means that you either work for the government, you've got like 50% of people in this country your major source of income coming from the government, or the government, if you're in private business, is your biggest client, nobody rocks the boat. More public servants in more seats means a message about cutting back on public servants, or at least holding the number at where it currently is, means everyone, well, certainly in the public service, loses their bottle, and it can determine elections. Now, when we turn around and say, how did Australia get into $2 trillion debt? We're currently in $1 trillion debt. This would be one of the reasons. Now, to give you an idea, by the way, the median wage in Australia is $88,400, okay? Of that, you pay about $17,300 in tax. So it would take, to pay for just the blowout in the public service in the past 12 months, $842 million, 48,590 people who earn the median age and all of the tax that they pay. Is there a problem with our system? Now, of course, the government wants to grow the public service because of that triangle of dependence. The government doesn't care if we run into deficit or surplus because there's a credit card. And the reality is that most Australian voters couldn't care less because they too have put their life on the credit card. We collectively have all often borrowed way more than we will ever be able to pay back. And we fingers crossed hope that there's some sort of financial kaplunk at some point which will be able to pay for the back nine of our lives. That's the federal example. And you've got a Prime Minister and you've got a Treasurer who just know, grow the triangle of dependence, you grow your majority in the parliament. The debt is for another generation. Now, of course, we must have massive action on climate change because the next generation shouldn't have to pay for the mistakes of the previous. Well, why is the same logic there when it comes to debt? Australia was debt-free in 2007. 2025, the public service has gone from, as I showed you before, $15 billion to now $30 billion. The debt this year goes over $1 trillion. 40 years of budget deficits means we will get to $2 trillion. But will people care? Probably not. Why? Because that triangle keeps growing until eventually it is the whole shape of the way that our country works. That's other people's money at the federal level. What about an example of it at the state level? Let's turn our attention here to New South Wales. Now, I like Chris Minns. I think his government's going pretty well. He will easily win re-election. But the culture inside his government is worth talking about here. You see, Professor Alan Fels, the bloke who used to run the ACCC, sorry for the old footage there from parliaments long ago, I think 2 Labor leaders ago there, in Jodie Bakay and Luke Foley. Well, he has done a whole series of reports for the New South Wales government. But according to the margin call section of the Australian newspaper today, Alan Fels and another bloke called David Cousins, while they were asked to do a review for transport, they are still being paid by the taxpayer of New South Wales. Alan Fels and David Cousins, 2 eminent blokes who completed their work for the New South Wales tolling review 18 months ago, job done, report filed, recommendations made, time to go home. No, except they haven't gone home. They are still on the taxpayer payroll. They are each being paid $165,000 just to keep their phone on. Essentially, their gig now, as it was written, is in case the government needs some ad hoc advice. So despite the fact that you could just hire them when you need them, they just get paid just in case you need them. $165,000 each. Collectively, obviously, more than $300,000. The average wage in Australia, the median wage, what is it? $88,000. What about at the local government level? Spending at the federal at the state, and now let's talk about the local government. Specifically, again, in New South Wales, a whole collection of councils. Now, as you know, the way a council works is there's the bunch of people that you vote for, there's the mayor that maybe you do or don't vote for, and then there's the permanent public service that exists inside the councils. Regardless of who is the mayor, these are the people who often are the computer no people. What about this? According to the Financial Review this afternoon, unelected council chiefs earn more than local MPs. Council chiefs in 128 local government areas in New South Wales total earn $50 million. The average pay packet to be the bureaucrat in charge of the council, $378,000. That is more money than you get paid to be the local federal MP or the local state MP. For example, a backbencher, the base salary in the federal parliament, $239,000. The base salary in the New South Wales Parliament, $239,000. It's all about other people's money, where these people, they love it because they'll spend it at the federal level, the state level, and of course the federal level, and you will pay for it, be it with taxes today or debt tomorrow. Melbourne Cup run and won for another year. Good to see an Australian horse getting over the line. Yes, I noticed the blood in the same way many others did, but apparently vet says everything's okay. Jamie Millam is the jockey. She, of course, has competed the Cups double. She's the second to have ever won, second female jockey to ever win the Melbourne Cup. Huge history moment. Congratulations to her. Good to see Michelle Payne, who won it 10 years ago this year. 10 years. Wow, time travels fast, doesn't it? There, as part of the broadcast, I think, on Channel 9, to congratulate her. It is also my favourite time of the television year because a current affair goes out and finds the wobblies. The people who are there for a good time, maybe not a long time in terms of standing up. They may well end up down. They could pick up someone they came with or someone else, but who knows, they all have a good time. It is our yearly reminder of compulsory voting, that every single person that you have just seen there and all of those photos that you're going to see all over the internet, they have as much say in the process as you and I. But there is always somebody who's got a bit of a woke little sauce that they'd like to throw over with a hot take on the Melbourne Cup. Now, previously, it's been things about animal welfare, but this year, the prize goes to a reporter who wrote this. Now, I don't know if this person's a comedian, I don't know if they're a full-time reporter, but let's just follow what they wrote tonight. Run wild. Is the Melbourne Cup the last safe space for straight white men? Accompanying the article, nothing but photos of blokes looking ungentlemanly. This, of course, was the running of the blokes as soon as the turnstiles were there. It happens at every race, and I'll give everyone the tip. It happens to the ladies too, but still. Let us just see how this person had a hot take on the race that stops the nation. It is an embarrassing time to be a privileged straight white man. At least in the current zeitgeist, they've become a joke. I know they're still getting paid more. The current pay gap in Australia is 11.5%. They're still ruling the world. Only 7% of top leadership roles are held by women. But they've become uncool. Tolerance for straight white men and their antics is waning, and making fun of them has become very socially acceptable. Okay. There's more. It's one of the rare days now where men are encouraged to put on their chinos, button-ups and R.M. Williams boots and live their best male lives. The men were seen lining up before the event had opened, dressed in navy and grey and black suits and patiently waiting to get through the security gates. Some were even taking phone calls because they're important men doing important things. Now, I'm not going to pretend that the record of the straight white male is unblemished. I'm not suggesting that the future is female, etc., etc. But the phone calls are a problem now? Okay. One last run of this person's take on the Melbourne Cup and straight white men in general, and about how their time has come and gone. For better or worse, the Melbourne Cup is quintessential Australian male culture at its most primal. The men bro out, get drunk, possibly fall over in the mud, and occasionally one falls in a bin or runs into a bin. So today apparently is a disgrace because of the straight white male. I look forward to her follow-up piece on who actually won the cup.
Jamie Mellom, the first woman to complete the Cup's double.
Mellom won the Caulfield Cup 2 weeks ago on the same horse. Now the first woman to win both trophies.
She becomes the first female jockey to win the Caulfield Cup Melbourne Cup double.
All right, but let's just get to the fun bit. Here's the pissed people at the Cup. Asterisk, they may not be pissed, they just seem it.
Untidy, unbalanced, unbecoming, unabashed, and altogether unambiguously unfazed. Long live our characters of the Cup.
Did you have a glass of champagne today?
Yes. 1 or 3.
Or 4?
5.
5? Your name on your lanyard?
Yeah.
Is that so in case you get lost?
Well, if in case I do get lost, I got someone can send me back to me where I've got to be. I've had a few already.
Missus, are you having trouble walking?
Yes.
Oh God! And it's so early. It's only 20 past 12.
Yes, that's right. This is my stability.
Okay, bro.
Did you back the winner?
If it won, then I did.
Have you had a good time?
Yeah, it's really good. It's been so good.
33 in the third.
No, just 33.
On 33 on the third.
No, just 33.
33.
Yeah, no turn.
No third, no third.
Saloon girls.
Saloon girls. Do you have a little routine that you do? Okay, I'll leave you alone.
I don't care who you are. I hope you had a good time. Today, and if you're on television, Martin King, done that for 33 years. It's my favourite segment of Aussie TV. It happens each and every year on A Current Affair. He finds a new way, but it's very funny each and every year. To a little more serious matters, back to Mike Burgess, the head of ASIO, and the speech that he has just concluded for the Lowy Institute. It is about all of the major threats that exist towards us right now. The event held in the Sydney Town Hall, again, other parts of the speech. The tail end of it may well still be happening over on channel 603, or you can find it on the Sky News app. Go to Sky News for just $5 and you can get this channel. Extra, the weather and a whole bunch of others, skynews.com.au by becoming a member. Now, a couple of the highlights that our team have been able to follow up after getting a preview copy of what he had to say. This is one of the things he has to say about something that is starting to cause trouble in Australia. This is about, among other things, intolerance, but not in the woke way.
But what we are seeing today is on a different scale with different dynamics. Grievance is growing. Intolerance is rising. Inflammatory rhetoric and behaviour is being normalised. Anti-authority beliefs are spreading.
And he puts the threats or potential threats of violence into 3 significant categories.
There are multiple cascading and intersecting threats to our social cohesion fuelled by 3 distinct but connected cohorts: the aggrieved, the opportunistic and the cunning. The aggrieved are the individuals who tear at our social fabric. The opportunistic are the organised groups that take advantages of weaknesses in our social fabric. And the cunning are the nation states that play a longer, more calculated game to divide and distract us.
He also talks about a specific group that I have long had problems with in Australia, and it's called Uzbut Turia. If you go to the About Us section on their website, it is not hidden about what their hope for this country is, and this country is to be one that will operate under religious law, not the current laws of the land. This is what he says about that organisation.
While an entity such as Hizbut Tahrir is religiously motivated, its provocative behaviour, offensive rhetoric and insidious strategy are very similar to the tactics of the National Socialist Network. The organisation's condemnation of Israel and Jews attracts media attention and aids recruitment, but it deliberately stops short of promoting onshore acts of violence or acts of politically motivated violence. Hizbut Tahrir wants to test and stretch the boundaries of legality without breaking them.
Amazing stuff. But the one that's going to get the headlines, the one that's going to be the front page, the one that we'll be talking about for the next couple of days, was this warning about how there are foreign actors, foreign governments, who are trying to intimidate people who live in this country who used to live in those countries, referring to them as dissidents, and what foreign governments have the potential to do to the people who live in the freedom of Australia but come from somewhere else and are publicly critical of the somewhere else.
Given the degrading trajectory of our security environment and the growing willingness of regimes to conduct high-harm operations, ASIO assesses there is a realistic possibility a foreign government will attempt to assassinate a perceived dissident in Australia. This threat is real. We believe there are at least 3 nations willing and capable of conducting lethal targeting here. It's entirely possible the regimes would try to hide their involvement by hiring criminal cutouts, as Iran did when directing its arson attacks. Please note I said attempt to assassinate. ASIO and our law enforcement partners are acutely alive to this threat and are working around the clock using all our powers to protect Australians from this threat.
We thank him, his organisation, the Federal Police and everyone who is able to keep us safe. Remember, what they know is important, how they act is important, the threats that they are able to stop before we even know about them, vital. Much of this work, it happens in the shadows, away from the media spotlights for the obvious reasons. To any and every person who is part of that effort to keep Australia safe, thank you. A frightening speech from the boss of ASIO tonight. Full highlights up right now at skynews.com.au. Something that people also look forward to on the first Tuesday of November is, will we get a cut in interest rates? It's the opportunity for the Reserve Bank to do so. There'll be one more meeting before the end of the year, but if they're ever going to go up or they're ever going to go down, normally that doesn't happen in December. It'll happen in November. Guess what happened today?
For all the bets flying around on a big day of racing, the only safe money was on an interest rate pause. The Reserve Bank delivering just that.
The cash rate tonight remains at 3.6% after the Reserve Bank left it on hold, as widely expected. But what is far less certain is where interest rates will go next.
Now, remember, one of the reasons why this is the case is because inflation is going back up. A full percentage point increase on where we were 12 months ago. And all of that because a lot of the sugar hits that were there to distract at the start of the year, that helped feed into the February interest rate cut, that gave the government an opportunity to pretend that there were many, many, many more rates cuts to follow, got them through an election, and now we're on the other side. Those sugar hits are starting to disappear, hence why inflation goes up and there'll be no further cuts to interest rates. In fact, Michelle Bullock even said today they didn't even discuss the chance of cutting interest rates.
No, we didn't consider cutting. We basically just talked about holding and the reasons to hold.
So when will they? Well, according to Pick Your Economist, there's a chance that there will be no cut until maybe the middle of next year. And I say maybe, because I'm going to show you another economist who thinks it's way later than that. But what's really important, and while the politics and the media that surrounds the politics of the conversation around interest rates is simply going to say, well, we hit a high point and then from February we've been coming down, so everyone's grateful and everyone's thankful. Well, the reality is, and I appreciate the website of SBS for putting this graph together, which shows us where interest rates were when they hit their peak and when they started to come down. But let's start to have a look here, where basically we are exactly where we were at the end of 2023. Not the end of 2022, the end of 2023. The end of the second year of Albanese in office. It effectively is the same pressure point on Australian families as the first 8 interest rate rises. Now, yes, is that down from the 13 that we got? You betcha. But as you can see, 8 interest rate rises with no chance of it changing until mid next year means the financial pain of the people who are barely holding on will mean they barely hold on for at least potentially another 12 months. Or as this bloke who spoke to the ABC says, you might have to hold on even longer.
The unemployment rate, yes, might drift a little higher, but you know we're still in an economy that's basically fully employed.
So the next move is up.
We think the next move is up, but we think the RBA is going to now have a long period where it remains steady. So we've got them on hold through next year, 2026, and rate rises penciled in for 2027.
Now, remember, last week we spent a lot of time talking about the Bureau of Meteorology's website. The $4 million worth of changes that effectively made it not as reliable as it had previously been. Lovely new fonts, but I still, as a regular user of the website, can't quite get my head around the way things used to look. And one of the key differences was the website on the left, the old one here, the comparison here done by the One Nation Senator Malcolm Roberts, it shows the darker the colour, the more intense a storm is. Well, for some reason, they took away the intensity of the storm, which meant the storm that hit southeast Queensland a couple of weekends ago, well, it should have had the black in that top corner, but it wasn't there. Well, we learned today that the Bureau of Meteorology has now permanently dumped the changes to the radar. That put simply, the intensity of the colours is what is going to happen from now on. You will start to see the dark red and the little black dots. Good idea. We will continue to assess options for further updates and improvements at the same time as pushing on with our efforts to help the community become more familiar with the new website, says the acting CEO of the Bureau of Meteorology. In the meantime, if you'd like to somehow find the old website for as long as they'll have it up until they nuke it, reg.bom.gov.au, reg.bom.gov.au. I don't know if you're a person who knows someone or is the someone who uses vapes as a way of not smoking cigarettes, loose tobacco or cigars. There are your many legal options. But we learned today via some international studies that you should be very careful about the crap that is in some of the vapes. Apparently this specific type of vape, among other things, traces of formaldehyde and antifreeze. One of the most popular vape brands in Australia, Alibaba, with the R's not the A's, is delivering flavoured puffs and potentially dangerous levels of nicotine and toxic contaminants, including embalming fluid, formaldehyde, and a chemical used in making antifreeze. Testing of the three Alibaba vapes was conducted by an independent European laboratory commissioned by the tobacco industry after being sent Alibaba vapes obtained in Australia. The results have been reviewed by an independent expert from the University of Wollongong at the request of the Age. Chemicals, which are prohibited in regulated e-cigarette products in Australia, were identified in 2 of the 3 e-cigarettes analysed, says the doctor from the very long title at Wollongong University. So think twice, perhaps not what you may think when it comes to the world of vaping, perhaps not exactly where you want to go. Now, let's get to our look at social media. Social media of MPs. It's just another way they spend other people's money, and it's kind of showbiz for ugly people. This is a segment we'd like to do each and every night to show you the stupid things they do on social media that you pay for, because every MP, every senator in the federal parliament has got a staffer specifically to help them make crap videos like this one about Halloween.
I'm playing a bit of a game, trick or treat. What have we got? Opening 50 more Medicare mental health centres. Definitely a treat. More paid parental leave, a great Labor treat. Repealing net zero. That's a trick.
Voters can't be this dumb, right? Again, it's a new way of communicating with a new generation. They're adults if they're old enough to vote, which means they're not watching Play School. So stop talking to them like they're kids watching Play School. Here's another Labor MP. This is the one for Bennelong, John Howard's old seat.
Having the man flu isn't fun. But you know what is fun?
And then there's whatever the hell this is. So, ick? Is that what the young people say? Or as the rest of us just say, please, you're paying for it, from a blowout in the public service to a blowout in the BS that they shove up on social media.